And I find it very interesting how like calm and professional they can just lay out crimes against humanity, because sanctions are a crime against humanity, and they are very open about it. That they want people to starve, they want people to struggle, so they can have uprisings against the leaders that the United States want to overthrow. So it's very, very like shocking and bone chilling in a way. Like you see how professional she is, almost like she's just giving a typical PowerPoint presentation talking about war crimes that you're committing. You have any comment you want to add, Aaron?
Sadism is completely normalized in the State Department. To be a so-called diplomat, you have to be a professional sadist. You have to basically be a sociopath. I mean, look how, as you say, she's so blasé about describing policies that are making millions of people suffer and leading to deaths, shortages. I mean, it's really tough in Syria right now. Hospitals lack vital medicines. If you have cancer, like when I was in Syria, the thing I kept hearing was, if you have some small ailment, you'll be okay. But if you get cancer in Syria, unless you're really, really rich, you can leave and go somewhere else. You're screwed because they can't afford the cancer medicine, like the cancer medicine, and hospitals can't fix the parts for their machines. And then you have this person in Washington who none of these Syrians have ever voted for. I mean, no Syrians voted for Dana Stroul and her colleagues in the State Department. But yet these are the people in Washington whose decisions, like the stroke of their pen are lead to consequences of life and death for millions of Syrians. And here they are just nonchalantly bragging about it, how they can hold a card on reconstruction, prevent Syria from rebuilding, and how we own 1/3 of Syria. I mean, it's the language of a mafia don and of a dictator. And it's completely normalized.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family. We are back once again. Welcome to RBN Friday Live. And U.S. sanctions is something that I cover a lot. It's probably one of our biggest crimes. And I think as anti-imperialists, as the anti-war movement, we need to start making the powerful point that sanctions is an act of war. Obviously, there are a lot of great organizations that do. But when you see the Biden administration, when you see the Trump administration's unhinged usage of sanctions, we need to treat that as a declaration of war. We need to treat that as troops on the ground. Because if you calculate the amount of death and destruction and suffering that U.S. sanctions has imposed in my lifetime, it's definitely up there with hot war. In the U.S. regime, they are very open about the fact that they use sanctions as a weapon to make ordinary people suffer, so that will make them more likely to overturn the quote-unquote dictator, which is really a ruler that we just don't like. So I want to talk about U.S. sanctions today. We're also going to talk about, I also have Pete Buttigieg, his career, his aspirations to be president. That shit is done because of his own incompetence. And just like Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg was essentially given a free ride. But I'm glad to know that's over. So we're going to talk about that later as well. It was good having the conversation with Aaron, because he does a good job explaining the crimes of U.S. imperialism. I was just on Jimmy this week. That was fun. We already saw we gained like 400 subscribers just last day or so. So always good and fun ranting and raving with our friend Jimmy. Make sure you guys check out those clips if you didn't get a chance. Also, Savvy Sabs will be live tonight as well as 6 p.m. Eastern. So we got a lot of content coming your way. Make sure you guys like and share and subscribe. We got a lot of great content coming your way. I want to share this story, and I cannot emphasize this enough. U.S. sanctions fail. Let me put this on the end of the age of sanctions. U.S. sanctions fail to even accomplish their stated agenda. Do you guys understand that? So the U.S. sanctions, the idea is that you're going to worsen the living conditions of the people in the country. Then the people in the country will then rise up against the leader that the United States do not like. And the most recent example of this is them putting sanctions on Venezuela. They've been putting sanctions and embargoes on Cuba in the hopes of the people overthrowing their government. Now, this is why U.S. sanctions is not even that effective, because what U.S. sanctions actually do is rally support behind the government, because those people are not dumb. They see that their government, their democratically elected government, a lot of times their revolution being threatened by the West because they disagree with their politics. So people like Nicolas Maduro, he maintained popularity among the proletariat because people see the United States putting sanctions on him. So people in Venezuela see Maduro, they see the way he navigate that, and they support him more because of that. Fidel Castro famously was beloved by the Cuban people because the Cuban people saw the effects of the U.S. embargo. Now we have seen U.S. sanctions, even most people starting to ask how effective they are. So I want to show you guys this article, and I want to dive right into it because I have a lot to say about this. Here it is. Let's pull it up. This is from Foreign Affairs. This person, far from a left-wing radical, I think she's just calling balls and stripes as she's discussing this article. She asked the end of age of sanctions with a question mark. Like, is it over? And that would be amazing. The rest of the world has adjusted to the bullying of the United States. There's so many countries in the world that also bought U.S. propaganda on this, but now they are starting to wake up. Now here's the subheadline: how America's adversaries shielded themselves. Russia being obviously the prime example. They were sanctioned to death after they annexed Crimea. And ever since then, one of the top priorities politically for the Russian people and Vladimir Putin is to become independent from the Western monetary system. So they've been waiting for this moment. They've been waiting for this war between BRICS countries and the United States, China as well. And this article go over a few of the tactics they are using to make themselves immune to sanctions, which is a fantastic thing. Because despite the propaganda you hear from corporate media and politicians, targeted sanctions do not exist. Hell, despite them saying they're going to have targeted sanctions at Nicolas Maduro, you had John Bolton and the Trump administration, they literally released a document, U.S. actions in Venezuela, where they bragged about U.S. sanctions and economic policies worsening the living conditions for the Venezuelan people. So they say one thing, this is what sanctions for. Sanctions is for a targeted attack on oligarchs and the regime, but it always comes back to hurt the ordinary people. So let's dive into this article here. Sanctions have long been the United States' favorite diplomatic weapon. The Biden administration's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine is case in point. It immediately imposed a raft of punitive economic measures on Moscow and rallied other governments to do the same. That sanctions are a popular tool in the United States makes sense. And now this is explaining why the United States has been pushing sanctions. They fill the void between empty democratic declarations and deadly military interventions. You guys see that? This is why, as anti-imperialists, we got to stop falling for this. 500,000 kids in Iraq died because of the Bill Clinton sanctions. You have millions of Afghans that are being starved to death as we speak right now because the United States was embarrassed they lost the war to the Taliban. So why do people see the people who die because of sanctions as less than the people who are being killed because they got bombs dropped on them? You can make the argument that when you see the Yemeni children dying of starvation, you see their skeleton-like bodies, that one is worse. You got a long, drawn-out suffering. And Lee Camp and Professor Wolf called it out there. I'm sorry, we're gonna do a video with them soon. You had Aaron Mate explain how once you got cancer in Syria, that was essentially a death sentence. So why is that considered a better way to wage war than just hot war? So I think as anti-imperialists, we need to stop giving them this out. So because of the Vietnam War and how openly unpopular that was, they decided they had to change strategies. Open hot war is not as popular, so they got to focus on bullshit economic war that is pretty much just as devastating now. Now, this is the good part. In this article, they said, yet the golden days of U.S. sanctions may soon be over. So this is about explaining. I'll just continue to read. As Washington comes to rely more and more on sanctions, many rogue states have begun to harden their economies against such measures. 3 events over the past decades in particular have convinced them to do so. In 2012, the United States cut off Iran from SWIFT, the global messaging system that enables virtually all international payments, in a bid to isolate the country financially. Other U.S. enemies took note. So they saw what we did to Iran, and they wonder whether they're going to be next. They was right. And it's a good thing they started to notice this. And this is about 10 years ago. Other U.S. enemies took note, wonder they be next. In 2014, this is when you had Western countries impose sanctions on Russia after it annexed Crimea, prompting Moscow to make economic autonomy a top priority. Now you guys see why Russia's economy is continuing to go strong, and the West has essentially backfired in their economic war against Russia. Putin and company has been waiting for this for quite some time. So quite some time they've been waiting for this, guys. So they said finally in 2017, Washington started a trade war with Beijing, which soon spilled over to the technological sector by restricting the export of U.S. semiconductors know-how to China. And Richard Wolff and Lee Camp is going to explain this here very soon. The United States is essentially fucking over Europe bad with their attempt of economic war against China. And the Biden administration has taken the war against China to the next level. More than Donald Trump. Way more hands than Donald Trump. Donald Trump put weak tariffs and embargoes on China. You have Joe Biden that's completely rewriting U.S. trade policy on China. I'm going to cover that here soon. In an escalatory step that even Donald Trump wasn't going to do. Biden just did. Anyway, we cover that here soon. The United States put its adversaries on notice that their access to crucial technologies could be severed. Now, these 3 episodes, and they're talking about Iran being cut off from SWIFT, Russia being sanctioned to death because of Crimea, where the majority of people in Crimea wanted that to happen. And then you had the 2017 trade war with China. Because of that, those 3 episodes, it fueled an emergence of a new phenomenon where sanctions, where the number one priority of countries was sanctions resistance. The United States' power to impose sanctions on other countries derives from the primacy of the U.S. dollar. And because of recent U.S. actions, the U.S. dollar is weaker than ever. The ruble is stronger than ever. They continue. It makes sense that the enemies of the United States would seek out financial innovations that diminish these U.S. advantages. Increasingly, such countries have found them with currency swap agreements, alternative to SWIFT and digital currencies. So currency swap agreements, they have an alternative to SWIFT, which we're going to cover here soon, in digital currencies, which explains why U.S. oligarchs is so desperate to criticize that. Now, they go on to explain how Bill Clinton in 1998 gave a warning about this. Oddly enough, Bill Clinton in 1998 lamented that the United States became sanctions happy. He worried that the country was in danger of looking like we want to sanction everybody who disagrees with us. Bill Clinton with the 23-year-old warning that they obviously didn't listen to, because that's exactly what it became. I'm going to show you guys a receipt where the United States threatened and sanctioned Nicaragua for having the nerve to democratically elect Sandinista socialist governments. So we just put sanctions on people that reject the U.S. hegemon capitalist structure. That is what we do. And then after we sanction those countries to death, we say, oh my God, look at how their economy is failing. Look how socialism doesn't work. That is what Robbie and crew trying to pull me in the hill. You guys notice it didn't go well for them. If you're a friend of the working class, a socialist, a communist, you should know how to deal with that talking point. So, a lot of this article is still written with a lot of U.S. propaganda, but I want to read this part too, because this person said at the time these fears were overblown, and I guess he kind of have a point here. They said the United States was still an unrivaled economic power, and sanctions were sometimes still an effective tool. Okay, that's where they lost me, because sanctions was never an effective tool. Like, in terms of accomplishing what the United States wanted to do, where you put sanctions on a country and then the people uprise against that country, that never worked. You just have more inflicted suffering, and then you have people who become radicalized against the United States because they're not dumb. They know the United States is doing that to them. So then you have terrorist cells, Al Qaeda and other groups, Al Shabaab, that say death to America. America has our worst interests at heart. Then people see the United States sanction their country, be responsible for mass death and suffering, and then they say, I think those terrorists had a good point. So it's never been effective. Sanctions has been used to increase anti-American sentiment worldwide, justifiably so. But based on what the article is saying here, I see the argument they're making. They're like, well, at least if you was arguing against sanctions in the 90s, that made less sense. But now sanctions are weaker because of BRICS, because of digital currencies, because of swap agreements. And they mentioned the late 90s as an example. Let's see what they say. For instance, in the late 1990s, they got Gaddafi to hand over the suspects of 2 flight bombings and accept the dismantlement of his arsenal of nuclear and chemical weapons. And the DPRK learned from his mistake, because you saw that Gaddafi gave up his chemical weapons and then they killed his ass and then turned Libya to a slave state anyway. That's why the DPRK said, I don't give a fuck what y'all say. We're not giving up our nukes. Because they say that they'll play ball with North Korea if they did give up their nukes, but they saw what happened to Gaddafi, which is smart. If you had nuclear weapons, the last thing you should do is give them up under the orders of the United States. Then you give up your leverage. Now the United States, they can't fuck with North Korea the way they want to. Why do you think we're not fucking with North Korea more? Because they have a nuclear arsenal. That's why. Very wise move by the Kims over there. Okay, let's continue. This person says, and you guys can see here, and I mentioned this in the beginning, this article is not from a left-wing perspective. Because you guys see how this see, sanctions, they had good point. There's good sanctions in the 90s, but now the pace of sanctions have increased enormously. And now you talk about how the U.S. adversaries responded by taking preemptive measures to circumvent potential penalties. So the tone of this article is like, God damn it. Goddamn adversaries of the United States found a way to get past our sanctions. He apologized for the sanctions in the 90s there too. Now let's go into why countries are more sanction resilient. One way that countries have made themselves more sanction resilient is through bilateral currency swaps, which allow them to bypass the US dollar. Currency swap deals connect central banks directly to each other, eliminating the need for a third currency to trade. China has embraced this tool with gusto, signing currency swap agreements with more than 60 countries. Now, do you guys see why they say China is a threat? China is not a threat because of the threat they pose to the hood. They're not a threat because they're going to harm your life, like so many dumb rednecks in this country believe. China is a threat because they directly ruin the United States' ability to sanction countries and economically wage war against them. And as China continues to grow, there's U.S. sanctions and unipolarity continues to decrease. So when you see Morning Joe, when you see Tucker Carlson, when you see the people talk about how China is the big threat, this is why. This is why. So they signed agreements with Argentina, Pakistan, Russia, South Korea, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, worth a total of nearly $500 billion. Now, they say Beijing's goal is clear: to enable Chinese firms to circumvent U.S. financial channels when they want to. And recently, Beijing and Saudi Arabia close in ties. And China went to Saudi Arabia. Was like, are you tired of the United States getting in your business? Do you just want to make money like we do? We just want to make some fucking money. If you want to make some fucking money, we leave you alone, you leave us alone. And Saudi Arabia and the rest of the world, who know the Western values are a sham, they know the West weaponizes human rights, they see this offer and they're like, hell yeah, sign me up. And in 2020, for the first time, China settled more than half of its trade with Russia in currency other than the US dollar, making the majority of these commercial changes immune to US sanctions. Checkmate, son. Now do you guys see why they're terrified of China? Now you guys see why they want to wage war against Russia? Now you guys see why they send arms to Taiwan? Now you see why waging offensive war is the last hope that the West have to stop the rise of China, which is a win for the global working class. I'm gonna go down here. China's growing desire to abandon the U.S. dollar is understandable, given the abysmal state of relations between Washington and Beijing. In 2019, India bought S-400 air defense missiles from Russia. The $5 billion transaction could have been triggered by U.S. sanctions, but India and Russia resurrected a currency swap agreement. Now, think about this, guys, and this is why this is so great. You have India, China, that is all for this swap agreement. Brazil and BRICS as well, they uncover. These are some of the largest, most populous states and countries in the world. Yeah, India and China. Billions of people, an entire region. Also, if you consider the Middle East as well, an entire region, billions and billions of people that are now able to bypass U.S. sanctions. Do you guys understand how giant this is? This is huge. Huge. That's why you're seeing stories in the West where they're finally starting to ask this question about the end of the age of U.S. sanctions. Gigantic, earth-shattering change is going to happen on the geopolitical stage in the last few years. So they're going to explain some more ways that countries learn to avoid Western sanctions. Another way that countries have sanction-proofed themselves is by developing non-Western payment systems. As long as countries continue to use Western financial channels like SWIFT, they will not be safe from the reach of sanctions. In Russia, excuse me, I think they wanted to pause SWIFT payments for Russia as well. Let me get my tea. I need to read some. I'll read some comments, guys. I'm alone today, as you guys see. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe. Put in a lot of work today. We alone, no CJ, so I'll do the chat check here soon. Make sure you guys leave in super chats, and that make sure I can get to them 100%. Otherwise, I'll do the best I can. All right, let me continue. Let me continue this article. I'm going to begin from the beginning of the paragraph. I had to get some drink. Another way that countries have sanction-proofed themselves is by developing non-Western payment systems. As long as countries continue to use Western financial channels, particularly SWIFT, they will not be saved from the reach of sanctions. Completely severing a country's access to SWIFT is the nuclear option in this U.S. sanction arsenal. So that's the trick they play when they really want to get rid of a regime. Like Iran, like Russia. That's the nuclear option. And that's when the West made a mistake. Because when they used this nuclear option against Iran and pulled them from SWIFT, China and Russia was like, oh, hell nah. Hell nah. Hell nah. So it has been used only once against Iran. Now they used it against Russia as well. And now they said China and Russia are busily preparing their own alternative to this messaging system in case Western countries decide to cut them off as well. Now, China, they have an alternative known as the cross-border interbank payment system. Now, to be clear, this new cross-border interbank system is not a match for SWIFT yet. And it's, for example, in 2021, SIPS processed a mere 12 trillion. Now, SWIFT processed that 12 trillion in 3 days. That just shows how strong and powerful SWIFT is. So in 2021, SIPS 12 trillion. The SWIFT financial system does that in 3 days. But it's still important because they explain here the very existence of SIPS, am I saying that right? SIPS, is a victory for Moscow and Beijing. Their goal is to have a working alternative to SWIFT, not the biggest payment system. See, that's the important part. They don't care if they had the biggest system. They just need another system to people to go in case the United States decide to sanction them to death. What matters to Russia and China is that around 1,300 banks in more than 100 countries have joined this framework. This is so huge, guys. So huge. If Russia and China were to be cut off from SWIFT, their backup is ready. Beijing may one day force firms who want access to the Chinese markets to use SIPS. So they're not even doing that. And they say by doing so, China will build its capacity to cut countries off from renminbi payments and from the Chinese economy, just as the United States can cut off countries from the dollar. So pretty much the way that the United States can cut people off from the dollar system, China want to make it so that this is so powerful you don't want to be cut off by SIPS. So we have one more way that the Western countries been using to escape sanctions. And this is something that I do have to learn more about, but digital currencies. And when I read this part, I was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now you guys see that there's this capitalist infighting going on with digital currencies, right? Like Bitcoin and all that stuff, right? Like some capitalists love it, some capitalists hate it. Now, apparently, digital currency is another way that U.S. adversaries are used to escape sanctions. They explain, in that field, China leads the way. Around 300 million Chinese already use digital renminbi in more than 20 cities, including Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. The digital currency is issued by China's central bank and stored on the cell phone of Chinese citizens. And now they talk about how the 2022 Olympics was a good testing ground for that new currency. The mechanism is growing fast. Predictions say 1 billion people will be using that digital renminbi by 2030. Goddamn. So now this is important. This is the part here. The digital renminbi is sanctions proof. The United States have no way to restrict the use of virtual coin that is issued by a country's central bank. Wow. Now that's the important point. So you have currency swap agreements. You have the you have SIPs, the Chinese, Russian alternative to SWIFT, and now you have digital currency as the way that they are bypassing these sanctions. So here it is. I'm gonna read this is the last part of here where they talk about end of the road. Damn, we 30 minutes in already. Jesus fucking Christ. That what happened when I don't have a co-host here to interrupt me. But I'm glad because I wanted to at least explain the first sanction part. So individually, currency swap agreements, alternative payment systems, and digital currencies would not have much impact on the efficacy of the United States sanctions. So they pretty much saying all three of those to get like individually wouldn't make that big of a dent on the United States. But these countries doing it together. But together, these innovations are giving countries the ability to conduct transactions through sanctions-proof channels. And look at this part. This trend appears irreversible. You guys hear that? This trend appears irreversible. Now you guys see why Western chauvinists and neocons are panicking and why the rise of BRICS in China is the most important geopolitical story. And now you can see this is where you really get the point of view of this person writing this article, and they damn near in tears. It says the rise of a fragmented financial landscape, fragmented, because the United States can no longer single-handedly control it. So this guy says the rise of a fragmented financial landscape threatens both U.S. diplomacy and national security. Now I'm asking you guys this question. How does this threaten you personally? When they say this shit, when they say it's a threat to national security, they talking about their unipolarity dominance that only helps the ruling class in this country and their class traders. So this guy is writing about how U.S. sanctions isn't working no more, and they said this is a threat to national security. Jesus fucking Christ. And then he said it threatens U.S. diplomacy. Sanctions is not, there's no diplomacy there. It's financial economic war. These neocons, they sanction the country to death. They watch their people starve. And they say, oh my God, look at this dictator that refused to negotiate with us. You can save your own people. You're making this decision yourself. I'll read this last part here. All this means that within a decade, U.S. unilateral sanctions may have little bite. Multilateral measures supported by Japan, the United States, and countries of the European Union and other like-minded powers will probably become the best alternative. These sanctions are more difficult to draft, but are far harder for targeted countries to circumvent. So this guy, this fucking piece of shit imperialist that's writing this article is like, yeah, I know this seems dire. I know sanctions in the United States seem to be weakening. You know the mechanism we use to starve millions of people and to lower the quality of life for millions of the global working class. He said, but if we can only bound together, we can get a strong alliance with Japan, if we can get the rest of Europe that is willing to sacrifice their quality of life, we may be able to uphold our dominance on the global stage. This paragraph right here is sick. Look at the framing here. He said, in a best case scenario, the development of multilateral sanctions will foster the establishment of a global framework to improve the effectiveness of sanctions. So he's like, best case scenario, we can find another way to continue this. And now, do you guys see why I picked this article out? Because I'm showing you this is coming from Foreign Affairs, establishment Western News, that is starting to acknowledge the end of U.S. sanctions. I didn't want to pick a super left-wing source. I want to show you guys that even centrists have to admit this. Even the people who are Western chauvinists, who are dreading this, have to admit that U.S. sanctions is failing. So I'm gonna show you guys a few more. I think I can wrap this article up. I know I've been on it for quite some time. I'm gonna show you guys the way the United States weaponized U.S. sanctions. I'm gonna show you guys Richard Wolff and Lee Camp recently had a great show they did where it was talking about how this sanctions is hurting Europe. But we almost at 300 viewers. So can we get some more likes on it? Let's see where we at. I'm showing 127 likes. So let's get some more likes so some more people can hear about how U.S. is weaponizing sanctions. Please share, subscribe, like, so more people can hear about the crimes of the U.S. Imperial Core, which a lot of people are not covering. A lot of the NATO left, I'm not seeing them cover this shit, man. They're not. Let's see. Did I miss any super chats? I gotta do a quick check. I have no producer today, just me. Let's see. Make sure you guys leave a super chat so I'll make sure I get on it. Appreciate the super stickers. JM, thank you for the $2. Also got a Patreon in the description as well if you guys want to support the show. Tend to cover state violence, foreign affairs, and the class war. But anyway, let me show you guys this. I'll show you guys this first. This comes from China. I reported on this earlier this year from China. All right, let's look at it. Let's check it out. So I covered this earlier this summer, where you had China leading the way and providing a path for countries to escape this madness. This madness where the United States just straight up weaponizes sanctions for their own geopolitical agenda. And China has been calling them out for this. And you have Russia calling the United States out for this. So you have Western media. I got to find the receipt. I can pull it up really quick. That's pretty much saying that African countries are falling for Russian propaganda and Chinese propaganda because they are realizing that the United States weaponized trade, sanction, and they had enough of it. This is this headline: Western sanctions are weaponizing world economy. China Xi Jinping says ahead of BRICS summit. So you had Xi Jinping, who should have won the most influential man, not Zelensky. If you're going to make the argument that Zelensky is the most influential person because of Ukraine, you have to say it's Putin, because Putin's the one who really started this chain of event that you guys are melting down about. It says Western sanctions are weaponizing the world economy, and this is an example of that. This is, I'll just read it. U.S. and this is from last year when they had the Nicaraguan elections. So you had liberals and people who pushed Russiagate. They would say, "Oh my God, Russia is uniquely evil because Russia is getting involved in their meddling in elections." That's what they say. Meanwhile, no one meddle in other countries' elections more than the United States. Do you guys understand? As they had elections going on in Nicaragua, you had the United States threatening sanctions if the Nicaraguan people elected the wrong person. The United States Congress passed the Renatscher Act and is threatening more sanctions to instill fear in the Nicaraguan people just days before the election. This blows away anything that Russia was accused of doing. You guys understand? What Russia was accused of doing, spreading low information fucking Facebook memes that was funded only by like $200,000. They say Russia influenced our election because of memes on social media. Meanwhile, the U.S. is literally putting sanctions with the threat of them electing the right government. And they didn't fall for it. The Sandinistas won in a big way. And they put sanctions on them because of that. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can find that. Then after the I'm gonna show you guys this. After the United States threatened Nicaragua with sanctions, if they don't elect the right person that they did, then Nicaraguan people said, "Fuck you! You don't tell us who we support." So then they said that the Nicaragua election was a sham. Biden slams Nicaragua's sham election, and he called Brian Ortega autocrats. How is this any different than what the Democrat Party is accusing Trump supporters of doing right now? When they say, "Oh my God, you can't question elections," you're questioning Biden won? You can call it an election denier. Meanwhile, the Democrat Party did that in 2016, and Joe Biden, to this day, says that it's Sandinistas and Brian Ortega with no evidence whatsoever. He said that their election was a sham. The Democrat Party, they are the election deniers. They are the one. And then they project everything on the Republican Party. And I'm not saying the Republican Party and Democrat Party, they are both awful. They are both evil for different reasons. But every evil that the Democrat Party imposed, they project on the Republicans. So first they threaten the people with sanctions. Then they say their elections are fraudulent and they don't vote the way they want. But once again, there's been no evidence. On the convo couch, they had election observers. All the election observers said this is bullshit. There's no evidence of this. Anyway, I'm gonna show you this. Since we're gonna talk about sanctions. And to this day, you have dumb right-wingers. These Republicans, some of the dumbest people in political discourse are the people who believe that Joe Biden is secretly in the tank of the Chinese Communist Party, as they like to say. This is what Marjorie Taylor Greene says all the time. This is what all the Fox News hosts say all the time. I see people who consider themselves anti-establishment, like right-wing populist people. They say Biden in the tank of China. These are the dumbest people in politics. Biden is to the right of Trump on China. He's more extreme than Trump. Look at this, a sea of change. Biden reverses decades of Chinese trade policies, not Trump, Biden. And even in this subheadline, they said, forgive tariffs. Biden's actions to crack down on Beijing's tech development would do more to hinder Chinese economy and divide two nations than Trump ever did. If you vote for the Democrat Party, you are the enemy of global peace. If you vote for the Democrat Party, you are voting for the party of sanctions and war. No more missing words on that, guys. If you vote for Joe Biden, you're responsible for this. Imagine considering yourself a socialist or a communist like so many frauds on Twitter do. There's so many communist fucking frauds on Twitter that vote Democrat and then they come up with some bullshit straight up bullshit. But they were like, well, technically, as communists, it's our job to minimize harm against the working class. I'm like, you're not a communist. You are a shit lib. A shit lib. You are a communist that is voting for a party that's escalating war against China, against the DPRK. Explain how that makes sense. Twitter is full of these fucking frauds. And then they hate us because we tell people you are not communist, you're not socialist, you are not serious about change unless you're unwilling to vote for the Republican or the Democratic Party. Then RBN really hurt their feelings because that's when they see the mirror. They see themselves. They see people who are not really communists. They see people who vote for Democrats. You're enabling this. He said the White House and Congress are quietly reshaping the American economic relationship with the world's second largest economic power, enacting a strategy to limit China's tech development that breaks with decades of federal policy and represents the most aggressive American action yet to curtail Beijing's economic and military rise. So instead of resisting this, you have the Democratic Socialists of America that prop up the party that is for waging war against the global working class, which this is. I'm going to show you guys this clip from Richard Wolff. But think about the right-wingers who they say, well, Biden is a secret socialist who's in the tank of the Chinese Communist Party. That is what Marjorie Taylor Greene and the right has been saying. And I've seen so many dumb, giant, large Twitter accounts mention the same thing. Biden makes Donald Trump looks like a joke. Donald Trump is child's play compared to Joe Biden. Donald Trump was met with disdain from the liberal establishment because he sucked at upholding the U.S. empire. You guys understand that? That's why they hated him. Joe Biden looked at Donald Trump and he was like, you fucking amateur. You can't crush this Black Lives Matter protest. Sit the fuck down. Watch how we do this shit over here. Look at how Jim Crow Joe does his shit, nigga. He saw Donald Trump deport Haitian people, and he was like, those are amateur numbers, nigga. That's amateur shit. And he deported more Haitians in his first year than Donald Trump did his entire administration. Joe Biden saw how much Donald Trump was funding ICE. He was like, nigga, that is rookie numbers. Now ICE is getting historic funding. Biden saw how much Donald Trump was funding the genocidal state of Israel. He says, nigga, that is rookie numbers. Do you guys get it? Joe Biden saw Donald Trump claim he cared about funding the police. And he said, nigga, I'm going to take the COVID relief money and give it to the police right in front of their face. I bet you can't do it. I bet you can't fund the police the way I do. Donald Trump is a weak version of Joe Biden. Everything that they say Joe Biden is, everything they say Donald Trump is, Joe Biden is that +1, +2. You trying to wage war against China with these weak tariffs? What is this pussy ass shit? I'm about to reverse decades of trade policy with China. Trump, you pussy. Joe Biden was watching Donald Trump like, this dude is such a fucking pussy. Meanwhile, progressives voted for this guy. Progressives voted for the guy who make Donald Trump look like a fucking moderate on these things. And they're gonna do it again. That's the funny part. They're gonna do it again. All this shit that Joe Biden just did in 2024, they're gonna tell you to vote for him. We gotta vote. We gotta fight for Jim Crow Joe. We gotta vote for Vice President Kamala Harris in order to stop Donald Trump. Hell, look at this article. This article, liberals, this is political, guys. Liberals hate China just as much as conservatives do. So they was writing this article with the mindset of, good boy, good job, Joe Biden. Think about it, guys. Liberals Biden a China-friendly communist sympathizer. So then they're like, no, Joe Biden not a communist sympathizer. He actually taxing and he reversing decades of Chinese trade policy. They say like it's a good thing. Look at the sub-headline. Biden's action to crack down on Beijing will do more to hinder China's economy and divide the nations than Trump ever did. You guys see that? You guys see that? You guys, liberals say, oh my God, Biden is more anti-Trump. He did more anti-China shit more than Trump ever did. This is a positive for them. Unbelievable. Now I'm going to show you guys this clip from Richard Wolff and Lee Camp. And Richard Wolff how the U.S. attempts to use subsidies to beat China in the microchip market are contributing to the deindustrialization of Europe. Wow. China is currently suing the U.S. over this economic war in the World Trade Organization. So let's listen to what Richard had to say here.
To deindustrialize Europe. We're doing this in a variety of ways, but obviously the touch point, the spark that has lit this fire is the proxy war in Ukraine, which, by the way, the former CIA director Leon Panetta said this is a proxy war.
We are engaged in a conflict here. It's a proxy war with Russia, whether we say so or not.
So I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, the basic answer is the United States understands, to their credit, the leaders here, that their problem is China. The fight in Ukraine is to weaken one of the major allies of China, which is Russia. And it flows out of that. In the United States' effort to struggle with China, one of the key issues of struggle is microchips of all kinds that are necessary for all the electronic devices that are becoming the dominant commodities of the modern world. The United States wants to maintain its dominance, wants to repress the Chinese who have already caught up and gone beyond in some of it and not in others parts of it. They want to do that. And one of the ways they're going to do that, just to give you an example, is they're going to give, as they just did, $50 billion of subsidies if a chip company comes here, produces the chips here, so that the United States doesn't have to buy the chips, especially not from the Chinese, who would otherwise have that advantage. And the Europeans point out, wait a minute, these subsidies mean that a German company now located in Germany, or a French one, or a British one, or a Swedish one, or you name it, are now going to be hurt as victims, collateral damage, if you like, in the struggle between the United States and China, because their companies are going to, here we go, leave Europe and come to the United States to participate in the subsidies, because otherwise they will not be able to compete.
Great stuff from Richard Wolff there that kind of explains how the United States, they don't give a fuck about the quality of life of the people in the allied states. You follow the direction of the United States, and if you guys lose quality of life, suck it up. Suck it up. So we're about 50 minutes in. I'm gonna get shout out to some of the super chats. Hopefully I didn't miss any more. Let me do a quick chat check. Make sure I'm not missing any super chats. I'm on my own today. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, share. Thank you for the $4.99. This is a solidarity super chat. Anonymous. Let's see. Any more else I missed here? And let's see, what's our next story? Because we about hour in. That story took me a very, very long time to do. Jesus fucking Christ. That took forever to do. So I think I got Pete Buttigieg in title. I kind of had to cut like 2 stories today. Geez, damn. Am I gonna have to cut like 2 stories? Let me show you guys this though. While I look for my super chats. Cause this, I have this in my notes for the last story. Americans kind of see this too. Apparently, Democrats are more delusional than Republicans. So hold on, here it is. There's a new survey. Let me show you guys this. I'm trying to figure out what story I'm gonna have to cut. I went super long on that segment sanction story. We see it. We see how this thing go. But speaking about the fall of U.S. global influence, here's a survey. This came from The Hill. Half of Americans, most Republicans, think U.S. global influence is waning. And you want to know why I say to the other half? Oh, you sweet summer child. Apparently half of Americans not paying attention to what the hell is going on right now. So there's half of us that's tuned in, that see what's going on, that see the rise of China and Russia. And I make fun, but this number way higher than I thought, because considering how much Americans are propagandized. Like if you're watching MSNBC, CNN, you're not knowing any of this. And I'm telling you guys, I've done plenty of oppo for you guys. But what the fuck? Why are Democrats? This goes to the shift in the two-party duopoly that we talk about all the time. Why do you see more Democrats, more rah-rah U.S. hegemony, rah-rah CIA, rah-rah FBI? They are way more into that than the Republican Party is now. Because so according to this, more Democrats are like, yeah, U.S. is still a very influential country. Meanwhile, Republicans are like, yeah, we are less in denial. 47% to be exact. 19% said it is waxing. The findings may surprise Democrats who had hoped replacing Donald Trump with Joe Biden would improve the nation's image to itself. Why would anyone think that? Jesus fucking Christ. Liberals are literally the biggest youthful idiots. Actually, no, they're not correct, because they know what they're doing. Youthful idiot, it like suggests that they're not trying to do what they're doing, but they know what they're fucking doing. I would love to see, because they're asking Americans. I would love to see the global poll on this, like what people in other countries think about U.S. influence. So remember when, and I think I know why they say this now, because remember when during the election, Joe Biden, Democrats, they would say stuff like, we got to defeat Donald Trump so the United States can retain its respect in the world. So the U.S. being the number one driving force and being responsible for the destruction of the global working class, their ability to impose other countries what they can do, liberals love this shit, man. Now, so the people who think that, they were like, why are you so mean to liberals? Aren't they the closest to you guys? Shouldn't you guys be working with liberals? Not really. Not the people who have this worldview that Joe Biden in the United States should be in charge, that they're a positive influence. And that's the message of Morning Joe, guys. Like when you tune into Morning Joe, Rachel Maddow, these New York wealthy liberals, their criticism of Donald Trump was Donald Trump weakening the status of the United States, weakening the position of the United States, making it harder for them to do neocon and implement a neocon agenda. So I thought it was an interesting poll. I guess I do the Pete. Should we do the Pete Buttigieg story today? I think we probably do that one. The world knows how evil we can be. A lot of great comments in here. Ah, man, this chat is popping today. This chat is popping. All right, let's do the Pete Buttigieg story. That's a fun one to do. All right, let's set this up. Maybe I should do that next time. I think that would be a fun one to do with CJ. Fuck it. Let's do it. Maybe our last story today. So Southwest Airlines been canceling flights. This has been a problem that's been going on for quite some time. And when you watch corporate media coverage of this, they always talk about it like, oh my God, can't believe this is happening. who knows why this is happening. This is capitalism completely falling apart, guys. Capitalism falling apart. You got railroad workers. They are so essential that they had to force them to stop striking via Congress and presidential order. They are on strike. You have Amazon, the largest customer service chain. You got unions popping up all over the place. You have teachers who are upset. You're seeing capitalism completely fall apart. Like you got people who stranded. I'm gonna see if I can find you guys. And this is all going down under the watch of Pete Buttigieg. So here's one story from New York Post. And now Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, who decided after taking a job where he got the most power he ever had, he's gonna take maternity leave, which I'm all for, but not members of the ruling class when you're about to be a transportation secretary on a 4-year term while you guys are denying Americans paid maternity leave. Fuck out of here. If you're a member of government and you're taking paternity leave while we do not have paternity leave in this country, you can go fuck yourself. How about that? Because other countries and their leaders, they take paternity leave, but they got paternity leave mandated in their country. We do not. And this is glorious because Pete Buttigieg was definitely a favorite of being like the next Democratic choice to be president, because we don't live in a democracy. If they wanted Pete Buttigieg to be president, that is exactly what's happening. Now, this is coming from New York Post because you have all these airlines that are shutting down. There are videos of passengers that having to collect their bags. Let's watch this video. I haven't seen it. Let's watch this video. I think this is a good job explaining it. Why you guys think that is? Instead of paying flight attendants more, they said, "Fuck you guys, fuck that. We're gonna allow people to quit, and we're gonna have short staff. And now ordinary people is paying for the management of airlines' greed. We are paying as a society for their greed." You have pilots in this country that has been upset because their pay is horrible, their living standards is horrible, flight attendants are treated like shit. Any chance for them to come together and strike has been crushed, and now we're in a position where our most critical infrastructure and their employees, they're short and they hate their job because this is capitalism falling apart. Let me fix the video. I say you guys say you can't hear the video. God damn. All right, let me fix it. Here, I'll play again after I fix it. Hey, here we are.
The bomb cyclone that tore across the United States over the holiday weekend wreaked havoc for flyers and flight carriers around the country. But as things get back to normal for most airlines, Southwest is struggling, canceling thousands more flights even as weather improves. But why? Old tech and staffing issues, apparently. Employees at Southwest told CNN Business they don't have enough people for such tight turnaround times with regards to flights. What's worse, there aren't enough people to man the phones either, even for employees. And that's a huge part of the problem. With the president of the Southwest Airlines Pilots Association, Captain Casey Murray, explaining to CNN Business, it's phones, it's computers, it's processing power, it's the programs used to connect us to airplanes. That's where the problem lies, and it's systemic throughout the whole airline, with much of the process being manual, meaning people have to talk to other people to sort out what's going on. President Biden and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said they're ensuring that Southwest is held accountable for both refunds and travel-related expenses incurred due to the airline's issues. Since the 23rd, Southwest has canceled more than 12,000 flights, accounting for at least 90% of all flight cancellations in the U.S.
So, as a socialist, I am wondering why there are capitalists, and there are videos all over Twitter of this, of people being stranded, had to find their back, people furious, yelling at the workers. It's not the workers' fault. They taking out on the workers. They have no questions to ask of the system. They was abusing workers, had nothing to do with this. So these capitalists take out their anger on the worker, and they never ask any questions about why this is. You got a massive supply shortage, rail workers striking. You got all these industries trying to unionize, all these people striking, and the average capitalists in this country have no critique of that. Completely uncurious. They're at the airport stranded thinking this system works great. Our infrastructure is falling apart. People in this country is watching our bridges fall apart, our roads turn to shit, our neighborhoods turn to shit, our airports, our flights being canceled. Our airports is literally garbage. It looked like garbage compared to European airports. The infrastructure of this country is garbage. You got literally pipes being frozen in water crisis. There's water crisis in the South because they're old pipes that frozen. You had people who have poisoned water in Flint and throughout black communities all over the country because landlords and development companies don't want to replace piping. Our capitalism is turning this country to shit. This is literally late-stage capitalism. You got capitalists stuck at the airport, not asking these questions. This is directly because of the labor value of the employees are being stolen. Airport CEOs and airport management is making record profits, but they can't staff their airport. But Americans think this is okay. Because Americans, they just accept bad as the new normal. Oh man, shit's falling apart. Things are bad now. Guess how it is now. Guess we just gotta deal with it. That's how Americans think now. Being up by the system. And the funny part about this is Pete Buttigieg is taking a ton of heat. This is what happens when you put people who are incompetent in positions of power because they serve your interest. Pete Buttigieg was a good servant in a neoliberal agenda. So like all American politics, they give people jobs based on how they serve the capitalist agenda. Pete Buttigieg did that gracefully and coming out strongly against Medicare for all and essentially all progressive policies agenda when he ran. So and the fact that he typed Bernie, he stole the Iowa election. So they gave him this job. They gave him a job because of that. The same way they gave Kamala Harris a job because she's a good girl, right? But now they're showing Pete Buttigieg being called out for his incompetence. Here, I'm going to show you guys a few examples of these. And I'm going to show you guys Pete Buttigieg's response, which is extremely Trumpian. I can't wait to show you guys his response to all this criticism he's getting. Because now this is Jacobin. You had the progressive left. You have a lot of these people that are calling out Pete, and not even just the right, guys. The right wing is going like there's a Fox News segment almost on an hour every hour about Pete. It's a good target for them to attack. Once again, showing Democratic Party incompetence and how rising in the ranks of government in this country is not based on meritocracy. Now, this article for Jacobin says state officials have been begging Pete Buttigieg to crack down on airlines, and he hasn't. He refused to do it. Like, this is something that he could have done. And this is Ro Khanna. So this is Ro Khanna calling out Pete Buttigieg. Here he is right here. He said nearly 6 months ago, Bernie Sanders and I called for Pete Buttigieg to implement fines and penalties on airlines for canceling flights. Why were these recommendations not followed? Oh, sorry, I had to fix the audio here. But he said, why was the recommendation not followed? This mess with Southwest could have been avoided. We need bold action. Wait, what she did. But anyway, there you go. So here's Warren Gunnels calling them out. Amount of fines and refunds to airline passengers announced by U.S. DOT in November as a result of historic enforcement actions. So this is people just refusing to hold the airline accountable for this. Now, the reason why I think Ro Khanna is calling them out is Ro Khanna has presidential aspirations, and everyone said Pete Buttigieg was going to be the next guy. So Buttigieg takes a ton of heat for this. Ton of heat for this. So good to see. It's good to see. This guy got propped up because of his job. And I'm going to show you his response. His response is extremely Trumpian. Here it is. I lost the tweet for a second. So after taking all this heat for failing to do his job, Pete Buttigieg came out with essentially the most Trumpian reply. He said, "We are prepared to face this kind of criticism for being too aggressive on airline performance and customer service. The truth is that U.S. DOT has both the responsibility and the authority to support traveling public and will continue to do so." So essentially, Pete Buttigieg said, "Oh, I know you guys are mad at me because I am too aggressive against airline performances." Bro, what? This is literally the same thing that Trump would say when Trump getting criticism or something. He's all, well, this is mad because we winning too much. This is unbelievable. And that's when you had Warren Gunnels call him out for straight up lying about how aggressive he's being against the airlines. So Pete Buttigieg, I think it's over for him, man. I think it's over for him. So let me see if I miss any. Let's do a chat check here. Make sure everything's good. I want to show you guys this one last story. I see this. I have this tied to my notes on this. I'll be mad if I miss this one. All right, let's. Yeah, all right. So this is a good one to wrap up on because I think these two kind of connects. Oh no. All right, so I definitely gotta show you guys. I kind of went out of order, but I'll show you guys this now. Because you guys know we cover the police state all the time here, and there are these videos of people being stranded at Southwest, and I want to show you guys the reaction of the cops. There's this Nashville airport cop that fucking lost his mind, and this is why the same with why I was asking capitalists why they don't ask any questions about their system literally crumbling. Like, you got people who still defend cops, even though they have no mandate to the people. They're here to serve the management class. They're not here to help the people. They're here to enforce the will of capitalism. So as people was hurt, you had cops going around. It's like, let's make sure these people not getting too angry at the management, not getting too upset at the people who are responsible for the shortage. So anyway, let's watch this because this video is very infuriating. And I'm gonna show you guys why RBN have the staunch message that there is no such thing as a good cop. I don't care what the fuck you. If you're a cop and you're following these unjust, so if you guys, they are essentially threatening to arrest people after Southwest canceled their flights. Do you see the priority of a big badass right here? This is why we must shame cops until they quit. We gotta make it a social pariah to be a cop. Like if you have a family member that said they wanted to be a cop, you look at that motherfucker like, why? Is this what you want to do? If you're a cop, is this what you want to do? You want to arrest and harass people who holiday was already ruined. Their week was already ruined because of Southwest canceling their flights en masse. So you want to go there and harass ordinary people. That's the job you want to do. You want to forcibly evict poor people for their homes. You want to punch old people at protests. That's the job you want to do. This is why we got to have cops quit. We got to make these motherfuckers be ashamed to go to work every goddamn day. And that's all. We're not going to have any legislation. We got to force these people to be shamed. Because they are quitting. The cops are defunding themselves. And they said, A lot of them are quitting. A lot of them are retiring early because they feel like they don't have the same prestige. They feel like people don't respect us anymore. They are literally saying that. So let's ramp up the pressure. Make more of these motherfuckers quit. Make their job as hard as fucking possible. This guy is a fucking scumbag, like every fucking cop that ever lived. If you, well, let me rephrase that. If you become a cop and you don't get immediately fired or demoted, you're a bad cop. Period. If you're in the military, you can get court-martialed and you can get sent to prison for not following orders. If you are a cop, you just lose your job. That's it. You don't go to prison for refusing to do what this guy did. There's no sacrifice a cop has to make to refuse unlawful bullshit orders. They just choose to do it. That's why there's no such thing as a good cop. And if you're watching right now, you're like, oh, well, my cousin Bobby is a cop. He's a piece of shit too. Your cousin Bobby did some shit that you don't know about. Your cousin Bobby probably planted some drugs on someone. Your cousin Bobby evicted a homeless person. Your cousin Bobby was harassing people at an airport. That's what your cousin Bobby did. Your son Joshua is a piece of shit that probably hit someone that didn't deserve it while he was arresting someone. I want you guys to understand that. Your family member is a psychopath as soon as he walk out of that house with that gun and badge. Every single one of them. Let's continue this. Bro, look at how this piece of shit is talking to her. It's like he's mocking her that her ticket was canceled here. You guys see why we are not organizing with policemen ever? Seeing people being inconvenienced with their tickets being canceled, this guy is rubbing it into her. You see how if you are a person who becomes a cop and then thrive in that environment, you're the kind of bootlicking punk that will look at someone like, oh, you don't have a ticket no more because your flight was canceled. Ha ha. Look at this fucking guy.
DC or Phoenix.
All right, well, if your ticket is canceled, you no longer have a ticket.
He thought he was being funny. He probably gonna talk to his cop friends like, man, I burned this girl. She thought she had a ticket. I said, if your flights were canceled, you actually don't have a ticket. Got her. In the same way that cops bragged about shooting people with rubber bullets. They literally been caught on video bragging about fucking people up for protesting. What a unbelievable. Look how much he's relishing in this bullshit, man. Unbelievable.
Right here.
Look at who his boss is. Look at who this motherfucker protects and serves. He says Southwest calls us here. Look at they literally say it. They literally admit that they are fucking bootlickers for capital who don't work for ordinary people. They're here to take directions from capitalists, not you. So if you're a right-wing populist, if you're someone who think you're anti-establishment, if you think you're for the workers, but if you support police, if you support the police, you are a class traitor. Are we clear? You are a class traitor to the working class if you are supportive of the police. And we got to spell that out to libertarians, to right-wingers, to the MAGA communists. The MAGA communists who love the right wing, who love the police. If you're for the police, you are anti-working class, period. Hear that part again. Look at who this guy says he take directions to. And I cannot emphasize enough, he was wrong apparently. This person, this civilian who he's supposed to be protecting and serving is trying to give him information, and he's like, I don't give a fuck about the information you give me. I am not here to serve you. I am here to serve Southwest. It's unbelievable. Absolutely disgusting. Fuck anyone who apologized for this shit, man. That's essentially the entire right wing in the Democratic Party. The entire Republican Party, both parties love these pigs, guys. I can't emphasize that enough. Both parties love these pigs. Both parties compete to see who's going to fund the police more. If you are a friend of these pigs, you're not a friend of RBN. If you're a friend of the Democratic Party, if you vote for the Democratic Party, you enable this shit. The same for the Republican Party. But for some reason, you don't have to say that. For some reason, it's understood that people don't vote Republican. If you vote Republican, you enable white supremacy. When will people understand the Democrats are the biggest bootlickers of the police? They fund the police more than the Republicans do. The Democrats took COVID relief money and gave it to the police. If you vote for the Democratic Party, if you vote for the Republican Party, you are, well, if you're an advocate of that, if that is your role here, you're an enemy of RBN. You're an enemy of the working class. Video get me riled up, ladies and gentlemen. I'll wrap the segment there. That probably about Pete Buttigieg. I ended up ranting about the fucking cops because that damn video. I had a bookmark. I shouldn't have saved it as a bookmark. I do one more quick story because this is a quick one that I can do. Because I saw this. The capitalist and billionaire class, they know that capitalism is going down. So let me change the subheadline line here. Billionaires blame socialism for Americans not working. So let's check this out. And we're unapologetically anti-capitalist on the channel because you cannot reconcile the class antagonisms through the electoral political process without a socialist revolution, without socialist policies. That's not going to happen. So we're not afraid to say it here. We're anti-capitalist. I'm a Marxist with a giant M. Because look at what the billionaire class thinks of us. Look at what the capitalist class thinks of us. And there's no way you're challenging this guy's power with bullshit libertarian capitalist ideology. You guys embolden these people. There was a soft strike in the country because American workers realized that they are extremely valuable to our society. They're called, but it's just not inflation. Pay. If you've been taking pay cut every year, you guys know that people make $50 wages, but nigga every year. Every year, stage capitalism continue to get worse as the billionaire capitalist class need more wealth to extract from the workers. Worker conditions continue to get worse. So now a lot of workers have done what I have done the last 2 years. I am withholding my labor. You guys can fuck off. I've been employed my entire life. Many workers have been employed my entire life. And if there's any way that anyone can get out of that, you should do that. You should do that. So the capitalist class realized this. So instead of advocating for a better work-life balance, paying your workers more, actually having a hospitable work environment, they were saying that workers are lazy. Workers are lazy. Hold on, let me. All right, so I know someone said stream lag. I'm glad it's good today. I'm glad it's working. Anyway, let me read this headline. Let me get to it. I'll make this a short story. This is from the Home Depot guy, and the Home Depot CEO is among the worst of them all. Well, I wouldn't say that. They're all fucking bad. But he's a notorious union buster. He funds literally the most rank, corrupt Republicans to the tunes of millions of dollars. Like, Home Depot is one of the worst. So he said, there's not a soft strike. He said, what killing people motivation to work? I just read the headline. It's a Home Depot co-founder says, socialism killed motivation to work. He says, nobody gives a damn. So he blames socialism for people not working. Not the fact that people like you criminal fuck, steals the labor value of workers. There have been many studies, there have been many examples of whenever stores in the area increase their wages, they get flooded with applicants. Like whenever You have companies that are like, oh, I'm gonna pay $20 an hour, $25 an hour. They get filled super quick. So people want to work. People don't want their work to be exploited. And by the way, when he says socialism, what socialism? We are the most hardcore anti-socialist, anti-communist country in the world right now. So he's just making up bullshit. For one, let's read the article here. The 93-year-old billionaire blames socialism for Americans lacking the motivation to work and warned that the future of capitalism is in danger. Ah, we love to hear it. We love to hear that last part, don't we? The future of capitalism is in danger. They know it. They only know there's so much resources that you can extract. There's only so much bullshit that people can take. But look at what he says here. He said Americans lack the motivation to work. And I am showing you guys this because I want you guys to understand how unhinged the ideology of capitalism is. Where Americans are literally the most productive workforce in the world. Do you guys know that? Our production has hit record levels every year. Every year we hit record production. But meanwhile, the people who benefit from that production, because capitalism is where the billionaire class owns the means of production, they still not satisfied with that. They are still not satisfied with Americans, despite us being the most productive society. Unbelievable. And this is not the first guy that said this. You hear this all the time on Fox Business. Multiple billionaires have said the same thing. Kim Kardashian, you know, the person became famous because of a sex tape, and she has advisors that make every single business decision for her. She recently said that Americans are lazy and doesn't want to work. This is a class war, guys. Coming from this billionaire fuck that made Home Depot, from Kim Kardashian. They all say the same thing. Oh, let's see if I can find that quote. I wasn't Kim Kardashian. Americans don't want to work. Because I remember people was hella pissed. Here it is. Oh, look at this piece. Look at this garbage. Fucking Kim Kardashian, of all fucking people. This is her quote. She said, "It seems like nobody wants to work these days." You have to surround yourself with people that want to work. You have to see how this is the messaging that comes from the billionaire class, because they want you to blame yourself. You can work 60 hours a week. You can wake up at 5 a.m. every day to wake your kids up and cook breakfast. Americans are the hardest working people. I know. I'm surrounded with people that work hard like a motherfucker. But then billionaires and capitalist propaganda convince people that the reason why you're broke is because you're not working hard enough, because you're lazy fucking dumb scumbag. That is what our corporate media, that is what the billionaire celebrities, what this Home Depot fuck is telling American people all the time. The American people are the people who are mostly tortured and attacked by the ruling class constantly. So then people who mind are not decolonized, despite working hard as fuck, they're like, man, I'm fucking up, man. They blame themselves. They get depressed because of people like Kim. Now you guys know why Americans take the most antidepressant pills. But then the billionaire class say, "Oh, well, the reason why you're depressed is because your brain is broken." It's surely not a society. Now take our pills, shut the fuck up, and get back to work. Oh my God, you gotta see. Once your mind decolonized, you really see how fucked up the society is. That's why I got a platform to let other people know. Let me continue with what this guy said. I'll show you the Kim K quote, because I want you guys to know this is what the billionaires are talking to themselves about behind the scenes. A few people are dumb enough to say it out loud, like Kim Kardashian. Like a few of these motherfuckers are dumb enough to say it to the point where they get a ton of heat. But rest assured, when they are behind the scenes at the Met Gala, whenever these rich meet up, they are talking about, oh my God, the American people, they're unionizing. They're lazy. No one want to work anymore. Oh my God, you see people getting handouts. Oh my God, people are getting health care for COVID. Oh my God, people are so lazy. Meanwhile, they don't do shit but collect the means of production. They don't do any work. They literally have meetings. There's been stories that talk about the day-to-day of a CEO. It's literally just listening to other smart people come up with ideas for you. Management is literally just, hey, come on, get back to work. You may fill out a time card. The management, professional managerial class are literally they work the least out of society, but they are the most judgmental. How is that possible? He said no one gives a damn about working. Unbelievable. Now, I'm going to read this last part. Look at this. The longtime Republican backer ticked down a list of people he blamed for standing in the way of private enterprise, including Biden, the woke people, the news media, Harvard graduates, MBAs, lawyers, and accountants. Now, look at this one. Look at this one. You guys see how this billionaire capitalist fucks? He blames the woke people for workers realizing that they are having their means of production stolen. Remember when we asked yourself, how does rhetoric serve? Like who do your rhetoric serve? You guys see how the anti-woke crowd serves billionaire fucks like this guy? You guys see how billionaires and capitalists, they decry wokeism, because if you're woke, you realize that the billionaire class and the capitalist class is robbing us. Don't hate your neighbor. We should love each other. It's the man who is robbing us. That is what the black community told you guys what woke meant. It's acknowledging who your real enemy is. And the billionaire class hates that. Now do you guys see who this shit serves? This billionaire guy complaining about the woke people. Meanwhile, you got Jackson Hinkle and Hodge. You got these people that think that them promoting culture wars is hurting this guy. Whenever you repeat this anti-woke bullshit culture war, you are helping this billionaire. This guy right here. Anti-woke ideology helps him. He hates it. Jackson, Hodge. That's who benefits. You guys see that? He blames the woke people for people not working. So I want people to realize that our society wants people nothing more than workers than to realize who the real enemy is. The people who push the anti-woke rhetoric, they want you to think that trans people are your enemies. They want you to think that people who have empathy are your enemies. Meanwhile, it's the billionaire capitalist class that is our enemy. And they don't want you to be woke because they don't want you to realize that. They don't want you to realize that. And trust me, I did. We had him on the show. He had no explanation. Look, we already had Jackson on the show. Ever since Jackson been on our show, he lost his goddamn mind because he realized that left shit not working no more. Now he went full Andrew Tate. Because he's like, all right, I'm not tricking lefties anymore on my bullshit. So I'm gonna go full Dave Rubin, essentially. But that is who the anti-woke rhetoric serves. You got you got capitalists, you got members of the ruling class that push this shit because it serves them. It serves them. If you lack empathy for people, if you're not able to acknowledge who your real enemy is, if you are woke, you realize that your labor value is being stolen by this billionaire fuck. That's why he's blaming socialism and wokeism for that. When you woke, you're preaching against the military-industrial complex because you realize that both parties fund the war machine. So that's I think that's a good segment for today. If you guys enjoy this, make sure you guys hit the like, share, subscribe. We got a link to the Patreon down at the bottom. I got some more stories to run by, so I may save it for our next stream. We also have Savvy Sabs, who will be live tonight on RBN at 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys check that out. Hit the bell so you don't miss a live stream. Good to talk to you guys. Always good to do these solo lives. I learned that I talk too much when I have guests, so every once in a while I need to do a 90-minute solo live where I can just get everything out of my chest. So appreciate you guys for listening. Make sure you guys like, share, all that stuff. Have a good one, guys.